This is Marilyn Eichelberger, and I'm on to activities for my lesson plan for 8th grade art. So for introduction to modeling, since this will be the first time that my students have been grouped together in their base groups of 4, we will begin an icebreaker in the group so that the students can get to know each other better. After a short period of time, 3 to 5 minutes, I will introduce the lesson by modeling for them how to critique artwork. I will have a painting that I have created at the head of the classroom, and I will show them how to thoughtfully talk about what works based on the principles of design and what could work better by thinking aloud for them. I will show the correct way to express my opinion and the incorrect way to express my opinion. On the whiteboard, as well as sheets of paper on their tables, will be a list of words to use when critiquing artwork. Each student will also receive a rubric to use to evaluate each student's artwork. On to guided practice. To ensure that the students understand, I will put a famous painting on the overhead to critique. That way they don't feel like they might be hurting my feelings by expressing their opinion about another painting of mine. This time, as a group, they will fill out one rubric together. Each group will say one positive and one negative critique about the painting. Each base group of 4 will pick at least 3 words on the board to describe the painting and use them in complete sentences aloud to the classroom. I will guide and gently correct their critiques and use of English language when it is incorrect. During independent practice, we will begin by critiquing student artwork in the classroom. This time, each student will fill out his or her own rubric, and then as a group, they will pick different aspects from each student to include on the final rubric that they will share with the class. Each student must write out a complete sentence that uses art terminology found on the whiteboard. I will walk around and observe the rubrics and complete sentences so that I can make suggestions as needed. Each group will then critique the student as we went over when I modeled, and then they practiced using the best examples from the group. By the end of the lesson, which is several days, every student will have verbally critiqued a peer's artwork. During the closing, I will have several students from each group stand up and review what we did. One student will give a positive critique about a painting that was reviewed, and another student will give a negative critique about a painting that was reviewed. Finally, a third student whose artwork was critiqued during class will tell one thing that he or she is going to change on his artwork to make it more successful. All 3 students must use complete sentences that include art vocabulary from the board. Students will each turn in to me their rubrics and sentences from the lesson as exit slips so that I can review their individual comprehension of the objective. I will then sort the papers into students who are very successful, successful, and unsuccessful. Because critiquing a whole classroom always takes several class periods, students will be able to benefit from their work the day before. I will be able to use good examples of successful student work, as well as review how to make unsuccessful critiques better both grammatically as well as artistically. After each student has been critiqued, he or she will write down the top 3 things that we decided as a class needs to be fixed, and then they will rework their artwork the next few days during class, once we're done with all the critiquing. I will be able to assess how well they grasp the feedback given to them by what they changed in their artwork. I have chosen critiquing as the main activity because it is a vital part of creating successful art. In college, all of students' artwork will be critiqued in every class, followed by a senior show that will also be critiqued. Practicing artists have their artwork critiqued in newspapers and magazines every time they have a show. I chose to model how to critique with my own artwork to show students how critiquing is done, and that even their own teacher has to be critiqued too. This allows students to see that even I know there are things I can do to improve my artwork. I will model by using correct English grammar to show the students that I have command of it when speaking. I chose critiquing a famous artist during the guided practice time to inadvertently teach them about famous artists while working on their command of English grammar through practicing speaking while critiquing it. Using a rubric helps guide them on how to assess the artwork before them. Being in small groups helps give students who are struggling guidance from those who are not, and allows the students who find this easy the ability to help teach their peers. During the independent practice, students will work independently in their groups, but the best examples will be picked to verbalize to the classroom. This allows students to try it on their own but remain unembarrassed because the best ones will be used. During the closing, I want students to review what we have done to have the influence be peer-to-peer or independent. Let's see, for materials, we'll be using pencils or pens for both the student and the teacher. Art vocabulary on the whiteboard as well as pieces of paper on the table, that's for student use. Rubrics will be used by students, but I'll also be using them to grade the final turned in artwork. There'll be a painting of mine, which is for student and teacher use, and a photograph on the overhead of Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night, and that is for student and teacher use. These materials and resources have been chosen to help students best grasp the learning objectives of this lesson. Pencils and pens are used to record information on the rubric sheets. Using my artwork and the artwork of Van Gogh helps students be able to express verbally what they are seeing visually. Using the rubric and vocabulary gives students tools to be able to complete the objective of demonstrating command of the conventions of standard English grammar and usage when writing or speaking. The rubric also helps students whose artwork is being evaluated assess what needs to be corrected so that the other objective for this lesson can be met, which is to revise personal artwork based on feedback. Finally, for evaluation. I plan to evaluate the student learning on the content of this lesson each day throughout the class period, at the end of the class period, and at the end of the overall lesson. Critiquing student artwork takes 3 to 4 class days because critiquing a student's artwork takes about 10 minutes per student. I will use formative assessment throughout the entire process and summative assessment when the students have turned in their revised artwork. I will be paying attention to how they work in groups, how they fill out their individual rubrics for the different students showing their artwork, and how they, as groups, select the best complete sentences to share as critique feedback. I will assess their ability to think outside the box. I'm going to assess where individual students seem to be falling on Bloom's taxonomy. Each day, as the students finish their rubrics, I will collect those and assess them to see where the students are at and make changes for the next day. After the lesson is finished, at the end of several days, I will use the summative assessment to grade the artwork based on feedback that was given to them. They will have written the top 3 things they picked from the critique on the back of their artwork and reworked it based on that. I have chosen this approach for evaluating student learning because it allows me to assess their comprehension of several different things throughout the lesson. I am able to assess their comprehension on how to critique, correct use of the English language, working in small groups well, where they fall on Bloom's taxonomy for higher level thinking, and ability to correct their artwork based on feedback from others. I am able to evaluate them formatively throughout the process, which allows me to make changes each day. Because this lesson takes several days, it allows me to ensure that they are grasping the concept, and then at the end uses summative assessment to grade their artwork. Thank you very much.